Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Debate Hub. I am Chesh, your master debater, and we are here. We are here with no technical difficulties. We are here on time. We are here. We've got questions already in the chat, and I am absolutely hype. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are live on Debate Hub, and we are live on FTFTV's channel. We have Craig with us, and we have Chris Shelton. We are going to do sort of a more in-depth discussion. So this isn't a debate. We're not here to argue. We're more here to discuss after the debate. This is like a post-debate discussion about like what makes up a cult, what is a cult, what terminology is useful where and why, and should it be used here or should it be used there? Is there a more stringent definition? Does there have to be a stringent, etc., etc., etc. We're here to answer all your questions because that's what we do here at Debate Hub. Definitely not just circle jerking our own, however we think about things. Hi, Craig, you want to go first?
Hello, I am Craig, otherwise known as FTFE, which stands for I Forgot to Flush Everyone. Wait, no, that's not right. So I run the channel FTFE, where I argue with people that have an IQ lower than their shoe size, normally flat earthers, moon landing deniers, chemtrail believers, those kind of morons. And I'm actually very, very interested in having this discussion with Chris. I really enjoyed the debate because I enjoy talking to smart people, and Chris is obviously one of the smart people, and it gave me a break from banging my head against a desk whilst trying to talk to toe fungus. And I'm really interested to hear about Chris's experiences in Scientology. I still hold the position that Flat Earth can be classed as a cult, or maybe a group of little cults, but that's not really important for this discussion. I'm just really interested to hear Chris's first-hand experience of being in something that is definitely a cult, Scientology, and how that has affected his worldview and what's going on now. If you're watching on my channel, do me a massive favor and just nip over to Debate Hub and drop them a sub. If you don't, I'm going to send Daniel Pratt straight to your house. If you were looking for the debate on my channel after this, unfortunately, the phone booth crew ran away because they have, they've broken up, basically. One of their hosts, the one that I was speaking to that arranged it, has been kicked out of the phone booth. And I will be speaking to him tomorrow instead about what exactly happened. So look forward to that. Thank you for having me on, Chesh. I do appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Chris, what's up? What's going on with you?
Hey. I am, I guess, intros. I'm Chris Shelton, cult guy. I do cult stuff. I talk about cults all the time. It's kind of my thing. I was in a cult, raised in a cult, and we're going to talk about cults. So, and I, as you saw on the screen behind me, I recently released, within the last month, I've released this book on cult recovery. So this is something I spend a lot of time thinking, talking, and writing about.
Awesome. So we already have a couple of questions from the chat. I did make a little bit of a volume adjustment, so you might need to adjust it now on your ends because I think I was a little bit loud, so I think everybody should be a little bit more balanced now. That doesn't count as a technical problem.
Nope.
As far as I'm concerned.
Nope.
I do want to say special thank you for both of you for joining us again. I do want to say special thank you for joining us again and having the discussion. And I do want to say special thank you for joining us for debating in the first place, because sometimes it's hard to get intelligent people to get in a room together and, chat with each other instead of getting distracted by idiots 24/7.
Which is my life. That's what I do online. For the past 7 years, I've just been speaking to idiots, and sometimes it makes my brain sad.
And we are going to be doing questions from the chat as well, yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Cool.
All right, so I thought you were going to I thought I heard you go, and then I jumped in. All right.
Dare you speak over me? Right, I'm leaving. Fuck you
all. Game over, man. So, I guess where is the best starting spot for this discussion? I think it might be like when it comes to cults, is the definition malleable? Because obviously during the debate, you're both debating from your positions. You're not necessarily saying that there isn't more than one definition. But do you guys have other definitions that you think would be
if I could just
feasible?
First of all say that when you look at the English language in general, I think as the language evolves, words themselves, the meanings can take on new parts and become different to what they were. And I completely understand Chris's position because he was raised in a cult, he's been in a cult. But I just think that in the modern age that we're in, the word cult has taken on a bit of a different meaning that it's the lexicon of a cult has changed and become a bit more malleable than what it was. I think if we were having this discussion 10 years ago, then we could be a little bit more rigid with exactly what a cult was. But you just look at the world we're in now with people like Trump, and he's literally got I would say he's got a cult behind him, but it might not match the definition of a cult like the one that Chris grew up in. But I don't think that gives any less credence to the position that Chris holds.
Yeah. You think, Chris?
Yeah, it's a term of convenience. It's a term that has only been used pejoratively for about the last 100 years. It's a term that definitely morphed over time, and goes back to culture and worship and cultivating things and stuff like that. So there's a lot of root.
Yeah.
We can go into all of that in terms of the word, and it's really meant. It has this sort of base idea of a culture, a mini culture. I think that holds up fairly well as a conceptual, sort of base of what the word means. And it is, that's why we go out of our way in the field, at least. When I hit this space, it was made clear by Steve Hassan, really, Dr. Steve Hassan, to use the word destructive cult, so that we're not mixing it up any more than we have to. The cult wars, starting in the 1970s in academia, also muddied the waters a great deal about this. It used to not be as controversial a term. This is the word and this is how we use it. But once academic apologists entered in the 1970s and started calling them new religious movements, and we shouldn't be, thinking about these things this other way, that's when the controversy hepped up that I'm aware of. You know what I'm saying, in terms of actual
I apologize
semantics.
if my face reacted to the word. Oh, and then the apologists came. And invaded the academia. Yeah. So just
yeah.
Go ahead.
And it was a cult invasion of academia, to be clear, because they came in and manipulated these people, right? It wasn't there are a handful of very, very cult friendly academics. Massimo Introvigne is a guy in Europe who's just been doing this crap for years, and he's very, very pro-cult. But not everybody is. Some people get on board by being recruited into the cult without being recruited into the cult, right? They get grant money, or they get opportunities, or here's a chance to write a paper because it's it's publish or perish, right? So there's a lot of different reasons why those waters were muddied. I'm not saying it was all malicious and malintent, but they were muddied.
So if we wanted to expand, then we've got like a little bit of we're like saying like cults can kind of be dashed around everywhere, and there's like an academic. And I imagine, is there a strict definition in different academia, or has that also sort of gone away over time?
There's various ways that people stress it. See, cults exist in different because academia is so siloed. You might get a sociologist, or a religious studies guy going at it from the group perspective, whereas the psychologist might go at it more from an individual perspective and stress, say, codependency, abuse, trauma, right, coercive control. Whereas the sociologists are talking about, well, it's a baby religion, see? And in the early times of new religious movements, they're more extreme and more riled up and all this. And they tend to not go into the abusive components of the group. So it kind of depends on how you want to approach it, I guess, a little bit. Maybe I'm making too much out of that, but
what I find is that outside of academia, the word cult is thrown around a lot, especially on social media, and especially in conspiracy circles. Everyone and everything is a cult. I get called a cult leader all of the time, because I've got quite a large following on YouTube of people that follow science and understand that the world is a globe. And you know, most of my subscribers are smart people. I've got PhDs, I've got people that work at CERN, I've got people that work at NASA, and I'm called a cult leader by the people that disagree with science and go against the consensus, because they you know, they see it as an affront to their beliefs, and because we are rigid on what we understand to be true, because you know, we can read a book without falling asleep, therefore we're in a cult. You know, and it is certainly thrown around a lot, and it does muddy the waters of what a cult is, and I think it's very different to within academia. But even
It
within
is.
academia, I think
It
it's
is.
still thrown around in ways that it shouldn't be.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. It is.
Yeah.
And that's because some academics are the most arrogant, conceited people you could ever imagine dealing with. I've had to deal with some of them, especially the cult apologists, right? They'll just laugh in your face and brush you off and tell you that you're nothing you have to say is worth anything. So it can be
being an
quite
academic,
grim.
being an
right? It
academic
can
doesn't
get-
stop you from being a human. You're
No,
still a person
or
at the
being
end of
an
the day.
asshole.
Yeah,
it happens,
absolutely.
right?
Like I know a lot of people that are, you know, have degrees, have BScs, have masters, have PhDs that are not very likable. And a lot of the time it's, I've got a PhD, so therefore I'm right and you will listen to me. And that feels very much like how cults work.
Well, that is one part of cults, right? But that's not all there is. This is why on my website I posted a checklist, and this was something I've been using because cults are such a niche field of study, and because there are academic wars about this. This is something you could say is very, very far from settled science, whoa, what happened?
Nope. What? We're here.
Nothing. Everything's fine. We hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong screen. My bad.
Panic!
It looked like everybody was quiet for a second because I had it muted. My bad. My total bad. I was looking at the wrong screen. Okay. All right.
I'm going to find your
So
website.
yeah. So this checklist, right? Because we need some standards. So when I entered the space, I went, okay, well, these folks think this. These folks think this. These folks think this. It's not all polar opposites, but it's not all one big happy union either, right? And especially, like I said, it seems the dividing line seems to be between the sociologists, religious studies guys, and the psych guys and neuroscience guys who are more into seeing the, you know, detrimental effects of coercive control. Sociologists and religious studies guys generally don't know what coercive control is. So they have, so they're just coming at it from a whole different framework. I think that coercive control is the behavior underlying destructive cult groups, in the same way that coercive control is the same behavior that underlies all domestic violence. It's just kind of like what happens. It's the term we use to describe individuals involved in a repeating pattern of abusive behavior. And like you mentioned in social media, narcissism and gaslighting are terms that get way, way watered down. I think destructive cult does too, because it becomes, you know, this insult word or something to throw around on social media rather than being considered seriously for what it is. So I have a checklist on my website that I utilize, which was put together by Drs. Janja Lalich and Michael Angioni, which is a sort of characteristics of a group that, you know, if these things are there, we could start really thinking about this as a coercive group. But just because the characteristic exists doesn't mean it's a cult. It has to have a majority of, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of context in all of this, because we want to keep it to the idea that we're talking about an organized group, not a loosey-goosey bunch of people who may happen to believe the same thing. That's why we always stress it ain't got nothing to do with the beliefs. It's what they do with them, right? So let me say all that to just kind of put it there as a direction.
Yeah.
So Chris, you were in Scientology.
Yep.
And how does Scientology meet the definitions of being a cult?
Hierarchical command structure, us versus them, fantastic concentration on money, and influence, uniform behavior, uniform disciplinary activities, uniform dogma. There is one right answer and there is no other right answer but the one right answer that L. Ron Hubbard gives us. And if you say something different than what he said, you are simply wrong. There's not even like a question about it. The us versus them thing, I think I mentioned. The fact that dissent is punished, it is not merely frowned upon, it is actively punished. You will be scrubbing toilets with a toothbrush if you get too far out of line. And
is that the kind of things that they did?
Oh yeah,
like there's literally punishments for like, oh my goodness.
Oh yeah. No, I was on a prison program for 3 years.
Within Scientology, that's crazy.
Yeah, right in the middle of Hollywood, I was sequestered away from family, friends, everybody, right? It was crazy. So there's a whole prison program that they ran, right? They called it the Rehabilitation Project Force. So it was a group of people who were rehabilitating each other. We weren't in prison, see? We were rehabilitating each other.
What a horrible concept just on the name. That just makes my skin crawl and my spine leave my body and run down the road.
RPF. Yeah, the RPF. So there are.
Was there any?
This is all formalized, dogmatic, structural. It's laid down in writing, in lectures. This is as formalized a cult structure as you could possibly ask for, right? And in terms of characteristics, just running down the checklist here. It's not a checklist, but these kind of things, right? Displays excessively zealous and unquestioning commitment to its leader. Questioning, doubt, and dissent are discouraged and even punished. There are mind-altering practices engaged in on a routine basis to shut people down. There are probably 1,000 double binds, crazy-making, mutually exclusive, thought frameworks that exist in Scientology, just in the teachings and the culture. Because there's two, there's the teachings and then there's the what people do with it, and both places are riddled with double binds. So it's literally a crazy making institution.
It kind of sounds to me that like Flat Earth is like on its way to being an official cult, but is like just taking baby steps to get there. Like, should somebody come along and decide to like mobilize the Flat Earth communities in a more organized fashion, they would be like bam hitting every single thing. And so there's if
they could get a centralized dogma that everybody was on board with, no variations, no fucking around, right? This is the way it is. Because you have about 10 different reasons or versions of why the Earth is flat or what's going on.
Oh, many more, Chris. Right? There's every flat earther almost has their own version.
And that's why it's not a cult, right there. That what you just said is why it's not, because there has to be uniformity of thought for there to be uniformity of belief, and everybody has to be marching in lockstep for it to be
the uniformity comes in the not accepting the globe. That's where the uniformity is. It's cult-like in the way
that the reasons why are all over the place
against the globe.
Right.
Yeah. There, like I said before, there is like the groups, right? You've got the Oakleyeites, you've got the Dubai followers, you've got the the ones where Flat Earth Dave is the Papa Flirt.
That's right.
And you will get other flat earthers that are constantly quoting their mantras. But the problem is that I think a lot of people in cults, like a lot of people in Scientology, can be relatively smart people, but flat earthers are all stupid. Which makes it harder for
the uniformity is they're all too dumb.
Well, let me throw something else out at you too, because I really resist the whole stupid thing. It's an argument that I really don't like.
And
I mean, if we're being serious, right? I mean, obviously, they're all a bunch of stupid idiots, but you know what I mean? Like
it's dismissive. It's not very effective as an argument.
It was a big day for me when I twigged on the fact that these guys are using the tools of critical thinking quite honestly and with intent, right? Like they actually do. the reason that they come to wrong answers isn't because they're poor critical thinkers. It's because they don't have emotional intelligence and they don't understand what motivates their beliefs.
I have like another thought too,
Right.
and I would love to get Craig's thought about this. I don't remember if I've talked to Craig about this in the background before, but I don't think we've done it on stream. But like I've noticed that flat earthers have this tendency towards not being very good at consistently
Tying
being
shoelaces.
like remembering where something is when you're not looking at it. And they're not really
Yeah,
good at
object permanence.
yeah, object permanence and relative size. And because they seem to like just not be able to like get their head around those two things, they're just everything falls apart when it comes to like
That's
the
a really good point because it brings up the fact that neurodivergency can also be a factor in belief, right?
Oh,
Or
yeah.
perception of reality,
Yeah.
which leads to belief. So
Yeah.
there may also be, one could not paint with too broad a brush there, but I will say that I've done talks about the idea. I have a personal belief. It's not a studied thing, and there is no study on this. But I believe that there is a higher than average distribution of neurodiversity in cult groups.
that
Because I think
makes sense.
I think certain kinds of neurodiversity make the recruitment and the retention processes slightly
Effective.
easier.
Yeah,
Right.
interesting. That's yeah.
Yeah.
How would you do that experiment? I feel like you'd have to get a lot of people who are either ex-members or people who are currently members being willing to interview about things. You'd have to like convince them
Yeah.
to do that in a way that's not gonna.
It's hard.
Yeah, that'd be hard to
Yeah,
figure out.
you'd have to get them all to like have literally be diagnosed with where they are on the spectrum of autism.
Yeah,
That's right.
And
even
you know,
there,
I do see what Chris is saying because I also see that kind of thing within Flat Earth that they don't think normally. They don't think in a straight line like a lot of people do. That are I think everybody is on the spectrum somewhere, right?
Well, that's why
But
it's a
obviously you
spectrum,
have
yeah.
people that
That's why
are
it's a
further on the
spectrum,
spectrum than not, right? And it is people that are further up the spectrum that will tend to latch on to ideas and be obsessive. My son Struan is autistic and is on the higher end of the spectrum, and you see it in him. He becomes extremely obsessive with things
Gets
because
in
that
it.
is a trait of people that are neurodivergent, that are further up on the scale of autism, and I totally agree that could lead to cult-like thinking and joining a cult because it's something that is then easy to obsess on and to become everything that you are.
Instead of diving in the Star Trek lore, instead of diving into the lore for Star Wars, instead of diving in the lore for Warhammer, you're diving into the lore of Xenu, for example. Like there's
Yeah,
that's
so
right.
much
Exactly.
to
That's
attract you and like keep you busy and keep your mind busy that you're not thinking about these other things.
Or
And like
diving
Flat Earth,
into what Eric
Yeah.
Dubay has said about Flat Earth. Here's Eric Dubay's 200 proofs, and I can quote every single one of them off the tip of my tongue.
yeah, and here's
know,
the lore
it-
behind this conspiracy around the
Yeah,
that's
world,
right.
where there's Russia's not real or Australia is fake, and it's like a whole big thing that you're just like. But then you start seeing it everywhere because now you've got that little bit of like I know something everyone else doesn't, and sometimes that can feel really good. We
That's
should
right.
specify though, we are not talking about the streamers that are taking advantage of people in this scenario. Right now we're talking about just
No.
like your average flat earther who's like a viewer
Yeah.
or somebody who's just interested and not somebody who's going around like somebody like fucking Nathan Thompson shouting at kids and
Or Flat
making
Earth
himself
Dave,
and people making themselves a nuisance or a problem.
well, exactly.
Although
Let's
looking
take
at
a
Nathan
look for.
Thompson, sorry, I just said looking at Nathan Thompson, I can certainly see levels of neurodivergence because
Oh, yeah.
he is that is his entire life and his entire personality, and he would. His
guy.
flat earth training was bouncing a golf ball on a hammer whilst reciting flat earth proofs. It was everything.
Yeah, in his
to him.
garage. Yeah, oh man. The
yeah.
other thing that's really bad about that is how and we should talk about this, but maybe we pin this for later because this might get into a little bit more in the weeds of what the effect of the online debate space and the way the debate space has been handled has made people like Nathan Thompson more of a problem than he would be if he wasn't given the platform that he was given to fall deeper and deeper into this hole and let him dig him further and further and further. But that might be a different conversation.
Well, I want to mention something here, actually, or bring something up that which is on that point. And the guy standing outside schools yelling at people and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Is this guy doing that on camera?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there
Of
was
course he
a
is,
time
right?
where
Yeah.
I would,
Yep.
I would, every time I had notifications of all the flat earthers, and every time they would go live or put out a video, my phone would blow up saying, "Oh, they're live." And one time Nathan Thompson went live, and he was live because he saw that as he was walking past a school, that it was break time, and all these kids were out playing in the field in the school bounds. So he went live so that he could live stream himself, shouting at these children that the teachers are lying to them, leaning over the fence, trying to give them flyers and stuff, where all the teachers are like, guys, get away from this clearly nut job that you shouldn't be near. And the fact that he thought that was not only a good thing to do, but an acceptable thing to do, as what you would assume is a functioning adult in society. I mean, frankly, it's in America. He's lucky he didn't get shot, you know? Like, if one of those parents of those children were around with a gun and they saw him try going after, he could have got shot. But I thought, this isn't right. You should not be doing that to kids.
But my where I'm trying to go with that, bringing that up, is if the camera wasn't there, would he have been doing that?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, no, he would still do it anyway.
How can you be so sure of that? How can you be
Because
so
that's
sure
his
of that?
life. That's all he does.
But going in front of a school is performative. Being on camera is performative. Being on YouTube is performative. And I'm just pointing out that people in front of a camera do things, are incentivized to do things that they would never normally do. So we can't so easily say, oh, of course he would go do that anyway. Is this something he does when the cameras aren't running?
Nathan is like one of those. I think it is too for Nathan. Nathan's a unique case, and Nathan is a special
maybe
case.
He is.
Yeah,
maybe he is. Yeah. That's
but
why I'm wondering.
I see your
That's
point.
Why I asked, right?
Yeah, your point makes sense.
Well, only because we cannot look at extreme behavior and instantly assume we understand why it's happening. And why it's happening is kind of important to determining whether somebody is culty or cultic or not. If they're standing on the street corner yelling at school kids because they truly believe that L. Ron Hubbard figured it all out and these school kids need this knowledge right now because their reactive minds are destroying their little minds and their lives, you have somebody who is coming from, true belief, right? And extreme action from that true belief. Whether the camera's running or not, this guy is compelled to go save school kids, right?
There's a really good question when it comes to flat earther that I noticed that doesn't necessarily happen with Scientologists. With a Scientologist, for example, or with a Christian, for example, or with anybody with a religious belief that falls under that heading, because Scientology is considered a religion, you're not usually questioning whether or not they believe what they're saying. Usually you're like, if you're debating or if you're discussing with these people, you're aware that they believe what it is that they're saying, as opposed to like flat earthers. Sometimes you're like, is this guy just you just fucking like are you just fucking around, like what's going on here? But
sometimes
I don't know, Craig,
you wonder, right?
Yeah. I can never tell. I can pose law, man. I can never tell. Craig, can you tell? Have you gotten good at this over the years?
Sorry, I was doing
whether or not someone is a flat earther is a Poe.
Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, I have figured out how to tell. And it's.
I'll get out the shock collar, Craig. You don't pay attention.
Sorry, I was responding to my chat.
Yeah.
I have got to the point where I can tell after 10 to 20 minutes of talking to someone if they're genuine.
Yeah.
And then there's certain questions that I will ask them to see what their responses are. And the thing is with flat Earth, that all of the flat earthers say such ridiculous things that when you're poeing and you're trying to say ridiculous things, that it's very hard to distinguish that away from the ridiculous things that flat Earth actually says.
Right.
So you have to kind of direct the conversation in a certain way to see where they will go. And the way to tell if it's a Poe is if they've got any kind of intelligence behind them. If you ask them a question that requires a level of thought and they get it right, well, you're clearly not actually a flat earther because your brain works.
Oh no! These are specifically, by the way, the ones that are willing to come on to talk to Craig in the first place, which is either true blue believers or ones that are just absolutely like you're just an asshole. I do want to give Craig an opportunity to read his super chats, and then I'll do mine because I'm sure you've got a couple in there to go through real quick.
Yeah, my captive in my basement seems to be sending me super chats. Rubik says for $2, I FTFE will give Rubik's extra water today. Rubik's, I've told you before, there's a damp patch in the corner. Damp means water. Deal with it, okay? Then they're telling me that my goal counter is still broken. I've got super chat goal for 20 super chats, and no matter how many super chats I get, it doesn't go up because Google, I guess. But if we reach super chat goal, then on Sunday we're going to do a panel stream. Rubik says again for $5, I did not slip kiwi into Craig's drink. Why would you even suggest I did such a thing? I'm still in the basement and definitely not on the right. Is that why my throat hurts? Oh, I'm definitely allergic to kiwi. Oh my god. And Rubik says $2. Will I have to make the super chat go on my own? That depends. If anyone else wants to join in on super chats, that'd be very nice. Thank you very much. I do appreciate it, guys. Super chats are not mandatory. I am just extremely happy that you are here interacting in this and enjoying the stream. So thank you for that. But super chats do help the channel. This is my full-time job.
I'm just going to go through mine real quick. I've got my unfinished journey for 666 before we started. It said, Hail Nero, Hair Chest, and Panel, and Hail Super Chatting. Well, I can because work. Shauna, who's been a member for 1 month at the amateur debater level, thank you very much. Unfornicated said, for 20, said, very appreciative. There is an alternative to modern day debates with people who know how to have an adult conversation. Keep up the great work. So thank you both for joining. And then again for 20 said, Flat Earth is boring. Let's debate the best rums. All kidding aside, Flat Earth has cult tendencies. Believers are based on cognitive development issues, objective permanence scale based on senses and versus instrumentation and gift or grift. There is a large amount of grifting that happens, and I don't know how much that applies to a cult situation because it does seem that like some cults are basically built on the idea of grifting, and Unfornicated also became an amateur debater. Thank you so much, greatly appreciate it. I do, however, have a requirement of all of you. You all need to like the stream, and you need to subscribe, and you need to send it to a friend. So do that.
If you don't, I'm going to send down your Pratchett House. Look, I don't know if you realize, but when you're in the chat on YouTube, we are, as content creators, we're just giving your address and stuff. Everyone in the chat, we know your address. It's like, yeah, we can click on, isn't that right, Chess? You can click on anyone in the chat and it shows you their address and stuff.
I did have a guy saying he was going to FOIA my entire chat one time. Insane.
Right, so, Chris, the question that I really want to ask is, do people within Scientology know that they're in a cult?
No.
Not at all.
No one who's in a cult thinks they're in a cult.
Okay, yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
Do they
Just
realize
like nobody
the
joins the cult.
tendencies of it?
I'm sorry?
No, true. Do they realize that the tendencies that you know, Scientology has, it can be linked to a cult? Is that maybe why when the people leave, have they realized that the oh damn, this is actually a cult?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they realize it as they're leaving usually, and when I was a Scientologist and a Sea Org member and people would talk to me about Scientology being a cult, I said to them with a big smile on my face, because it was a great big gotcha as far as I was concerned. Well, yes, of course we're a cult, just like the Catholic Church. If you look up the word cult in a dictionary.
Oh no. Oh no.
I mean, that's not the gotcha you think it is, because you know I'd say that religion is all a cult and the Catholic Church is a cult, but that doesn't make it a good thing. Like it seems to me that at that point you thought that was like a good gotcha, you know?
It's not pejorative, right? It's just a group of people who aligned around a common idea.
Yeah.
Then there is the pejorative idea of extremism, right? But I'll sit here and it is a hill I will die on, that the Catholic Church is not a cult, right? All religion is not a cult. It's a much more nuanced thing than that. But you get so much culty behavior. And if I might just throw this out to sort of change the direction of how we're looking at this group, think about people's emotional needs. We all have them. Have you ever read a book called Among the Truthers? Or no, sorry, Among the Truthers? Craig?
Was it written by Terry Pratchett? If not, then probably not.
No, Among the Truthers is a conspiracy theorist
We know that, Chester.
study. It's a book about conspiracy theorists. And it gives about 8 or 9 origin stories for why people fall into conspiracy theories. Traumatic episode is one, insanity is another, although a very, very rare one. What was it? Trauma can throw a person into a conspiracy mindset.
Yeah.
Women whose children are in danger or die can get anti-vax very quickly because of that trauma, not because they're stupid people.
Yeah.
The emotional needs of people are what really is the engine that drives their behavior. And when you look into why people are in cults or what cults are doing to people, it is manipulating and exploiting their unfulfilled emotional needs. And you can categorize emotional needs in a few different ways. It doesn't really matter what system you use as far as I'm concerned, as long as you understand that these needs must be met or we feel empty inside. And so I'm talking about things like community, purpose and meaning, justice, stuff like this, right? Sense of self. So a way of thinking about these groups and why people are in them is because the group not only manipulates and exploits, but as far as the person is concerned, very much fulfills those emotional needs that they need filled. So that's just something I'll throw out from a psych perspective.
So
Ninjester, just before you go,
Scientology,
just before you go, Craig, Ninjester in the chat said Chesh's spine was so appalled that it ran back in time and joined Raid Shadow Legends because it was more bearable. Also,
I
your
got for the
people
sponsorship
are...
for Raid Shadow Legends, and I said no.
Oh, I'd do it. I'd throw you. I'd sell you all out for a Klondike bar. Craig, your people are invading my chat and telling me to do push-ups.
Well, go on then.
I might. Tempt me. Say what you're going to say.
Oh,
okay.
Although I think they specifically asked for topless push-ups. I'm not sure.
Oh, that's going to be on the other channel. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, the OnlyFans. When you were in Scientology, Chris, was there any...
Yep.
Did you ever look at the other people and think, wow, they're a bit crazy?
Sure. It was a big enough group that I met, probably 1,000 Scientologists over the course of time I was in. And I met all kinds of people, and they were all over the spectrum, from the most successful business people and celebrities to real down and outers and drug cases and people who were, on the edge of collapse. So I've seen all of that represented in Scientology.
Do we think that how do I word this? Do we think that more social programs made available that give people more access to either psychology or therapy to help them get through grief or some kind of trauma, and or programs like would those social programs maybe be preventative when it comes to like enabling predators and predator-like groups that are destructive in these cult situations?
Yes, that would be helpful. It's a very broad question, but yes, broadly speaking, it absolutely would help. You cannot fully proof somebody up against coercive control or manipulation because we are emotional creatures and we have emotional needs that can be exploited. But that doesn't mean we're just, willow wands that wave in the wind every time somebody blows and pushes our buttons. We can develop discipline of critical thinking, of boundaries, which I think is actually the most fundamental thing to teach in terms of preventing coercion. And we can, of course, teach about coercive control itself.
There, I set a super chat goal.
For
push-ups in a funny hat.
So within Scientology, was there anything about it that helped people?
That helped?
Yeah, did any of the people come to Scientology and become better for being in Scientology?
Yes.
Okay, tell me about that. That's interesting.
Well, you have people who I was a sinner and now I'm not, right? I was a sinner and now I have seen the light.
I've been saved.
There are people who go into Scientology who have a criminal background or, you know, immoral background of some kind and get their shit together. But Scientology is not really great at maintaining that or providing stability or security for people to maintain those highs. So you have those highs happen, you have positive change occur, but over time, because of the deleterious effects of Scientology on a person's mental health, things tend to get worse over time. But that
It's a
doesn't
baby in
mean
the
no
bathwater
help ever
situation.
happens. You
Yeah.
have to help somebody or they won't join up and they won't sign up and they won't pay you millions of dollars, right? You got to do something for them. And it's actually the trauma bonding of that that sticks people to it. You're helping them and then you're hurting them and then you're helping them and then you're hurting them.
Yeah.
And that's the glue that actually keeps people stuck there.
So was there like constant bursaries that you had to pay? Like if you didn't keep up with certain payments, were you like, right, you're out the cult, out of Scientology?
No, it doesn't. It's a pay-to-play
wallet?
religion where you're doing services in order to attain personal spiritual freedom and immortality. So you have to pay for the auditing, the therapy, right? The counseling, and
Right.
that is paid for by the hour. That is sold in chunks of time, and you have classwork, and you pay for each individual class, or they have packages that you can buy. You know, you can buy a training package for $20,000 and do like
So what if you
all
can't pay?
the auditor training, right? That
don't
kind
get
of
it.
thing. Yeah.
So
And they're
if you can't pay,
constantly
you just
hitting you
don't
up.
get to do it then.
Yeah.
What's that?
If you don't pay, you just don't get to do it then. Like you.
Correct.
And you're a bad Scientologist.
You have to pay, and you're going to pay a lot. And the attitude within Scientology is not one of resentment and disgust at that. It's an attitude of the money alone is not even the exchange for the, it's pennies for pearls. It's, I couldn't give them, I could give them more money. It's not a problem, right? Tends to be the thinking. Now, this is all the way up until somebody declares bankruptcy, of course. I mean, I'm not saying this is rational thinking, but it is the thinking that goes on there.
Does it lean into addiction at all? I wonder.
The auditing process can create what I would think of or have called an addictive sort of phenomena. You get addicted to the auditing because it induces peak experiences and a euphoria. And people really, really like feeling that way. Right. And if their life is basically miserable, those windows of time for their auditing are the only times they get to feel that way. And they, so not only are they paying, but they actually do get kind of a little squishy about it. It's a little weird to see. But I didn't see a lot of that. I only saw a handful of that over the years in terms of something I would call addictive behavior.
Well, okay. I know
that you mentioned going bankrupt. What happens then if you go bankrupt and you can't pay anything? What does Scientology do?
They do handlings with you, have you read Hubbard books, listen to Hubbard lectures. I mean, there's 5,000 recorded lectures of L. Ron Hubbard, right? There's a wealth of information and things to keep you connected up. And what they want to do is keep you connected. So maybe you're not doing services right now because you can't pay for them, but you're making payments toward your next service. Even $10 a week is better than nothing. And a salesperson will be in constant
layaway cult.
Yeah, exactly. And they will be in touch with you about that and planning for that. Okay, we're going to make this work out. So you're going to get on course in December, and these are the payments you're making. And of course, they're going to be contacting you every week. Can you pay a little bit more? How's it going this week? Do you need some help? And it's hard to explain easily or simply. So, but let me just say, there's a wealth of tools or methodologies or debug things you can do to a person's life with Scientology tools to get them goosed into production or get them moving or get them going. And Scientologists do that stuff all the time. They have all kinds of tools that they use, right? And sometimes they work.
Valid. Sometimes those things just work.
Crazy.
When it comes to Flat Earth, I know, Craig, you were interested that Chris had been to one of the Flat Earth conventions. I think your audience would be super interested in hearing about his experience there.
Yeah. When you went to the Flat Earth convention, what were your thoughts about the people there, the way it was run, the community? Um, I know that I remember you saying that there was so many different types of people, but what was your general overall feeling when you were there?
Yeah, it's great. It was 3 days that I went. I got the full package. It was here in Denver. I think it was in 2018. And it was a large convention hall where they had the main hall with speakers that were scheduled all throughout the day. And there were a lot of very wild conspiracy theories bandied about that day on the stage. The 2 days, I think, that they were doing those, it was a 3-day thing, and there were 2 days, I think, of presentations. There was a merch room, of course, and then there was a secondary presentation room where, for example, while the main event had some big briefing about, UNESCO and USAID and the United Nations and how it was all, the devil's conspiracy to bring down society. Over in the other room, the atheist flat earthers were meeting and going, oh yeah, we're not into the religion thing, but the earth is definitely flat. And here's all the scientific proof, right? And they were doing that whole briefing. And I was like, this is interesting, because that's when I suddenly realized that there was these two factions of based on religion. And the more time I spent talking to people, interacting one-on-one, because I was spending my days running around talking to people, not interviewing, not videoing, just chill. I was going to be sort of an inside guy, not challenge, not debate, not get mean. Tell me what you think. Tell me why you're here. Tell me what's up, right? Why do you believe all this stuff?
So did they know that you weren't a flat earther?
If they asked me. But I didn't make it obvious that I was not.
If I learned anything from Chris, is when we talked about talking to culty members or cult-like people, it was don't lie to them.
That's right. Do not lie. The second you break trust, they'll never believe anything you say.
Yeah.
So did you see any parallels between Flat Earth and Scientology at all while you were there?
Got to think about it.
Okay, so let me tell you why I'm silent right now. Because if that convention were a Scientology produced event, it would have been almost night and day different. It would have been much more tightly regulated and controlled. It would have been much more tightly scheduled. It would have been much more in your face. It would have been much more not individuals sparking off about their dumbass individual ideas. It would have been dogmatically centric, all dogmatically approved messaging. Nothing would have been on that stage that wouldn't have been completely approved by a central authority. And that's one of the things that's missing in Flat Earthers. There is no approval line to go up on that and compare notes with other things. And no, this is wrong because, Joe Blow says that's not there. And I saw, like I said, 5 different conspiracy theories that definitely were not, the unified conspiracy theory. They were all over the place. So it was very interesting to see that there was not a unity of messaging and belief, which is kind of what I was expecting to see. And that was what I spent so much of my time clarifying with people. Well, what do you believe, and why do you believe this? Where did this come from? When were you not flat Earth, and then you were, right? What was that moment? What convinced you? Stuff like that. I was asking those kind of questions. And why did they come? Where did they come from? Right? There were people from all around the earth. So it was, so it was kind of fun to talk to all these people who had flown in from England. I was like, this is interesting. And this was the year 2018 that I think it was Logan Paul was there.
You were there the same time as freaking Logan Paul. Crazy.
That was one of the first videos. Yeah, that was one of the first things I recovered on Flat Earth. Logan Paul doing his coming out video, and I'm not a fan of Logan Paul, but that was one of the most epic trolling.
That was good. That was a good one
I've ever seen. Yeah, it was brilliant. And then he brought out his Flat Earth documentary, and it was incredible.
Yeah, I was right there when he did it. I was right in front of him. So
I remember that Mark Sargent got very angry because Mark Sargent wanted to be the big guy there, but Logan Paul was there, and he was taking all of the thunder, all the fame. And Mark Sargent was very annoyed that he wasn't the famous person there. Yeah, that was brilliant.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
well,
anyway, so as far as those differences in the event production itself, that sort of speaks to a lot of what I'm talking about in terms of unity of action, unity of belief, unity, you know. It was very much an interesting thing to listen to people talk about how they sleep in trailers and on each other's couches and stuff. This is a very broke ass movement. These are not people who are making money off of this.
Because they're not smart people.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, regardless of why they're not, the fact that they're not is a characteristic of the group. It's a disparate group. And cults are much more unified. So the money-making opportunities are barely there. You know, there's no analogy.
It's YouTube and that's it,
which
is not a lot compared to what Scientology
there's very few people in Flat Earth that can make money. People like Flat Earth Dave and Eric Dubay, the ones that are actually able to monetize it are the very few and the far between. 99.9% of Flat Earthers are broke because they don't have the social skills or the intelligence or you know the know-how to hold down a job or to monetize the fact that they are a flat earther. Most flat earthers on YouTube make pennies if their channels are monetized. Look at Nathan Oakley, who you would say is probably one of the world's biggest flat earthers, but now gets like 1,000 views a month on his YouTube channel, and is struggling so much that he sometimes doesn't stream for a week or two at a time because he can't pay his internet bill, and he's one of the big flat earthers. So yeah, I totally get your point and how that is very different from something like Scientology, which is very focused around money, and you know, and it's very interesting to find out that it's how I didn't realize how pay to play it was. I didn't realize that if you weren't paying, you weren't going up in the ranks or whatever it was called. Like you just, I guess you would just stick at the bottom rung.
A question
that is very
related to that came up from Rosina for I think it was a $5 super chat. Said, do people join Scientology? Do people join Scientology? What the? Do people join Scientology to join a community or just to level up in like the OT points?
Both or neither. People have, like I mentioned, right? People join for their emotional needs, and then they get on board with the group's dogma. It's a morphing process. It's a transformational process. So I mean, they get in for selfish reasons almost uniformly across the boards. Very few people join a cult because they want to save the world. But during the process of being in the cult, they take on the cult leader's characteristics. Yeah. That's actually another thing about Flat Earth in terms of a psychological tendency in cults is that the personality and very identity of each member becomes the personality and identity of the cult leader, because they are all playing follow the leader, and they are trying to emulate and be that person. In Scientology, quite, you know, like easily, in Scientology, we had a phrase we would use: what would Ron do when you're faced with some problem? What would Ron do? That's what I should do. Not what should I do? It's what would Ron do? And that's kind of how you start emulating the leader and being the leader. And it really messes with your sense of self.
And there are some that are like, some religions take this on too, like with the "What Would Jesus Do" bracelets, and there are some like Young Earth creationist group, like Ken Ham's group, going around and being like, "Oh, buy these materials and believe the things that we tell you to believe." That gets in that culty behavior. I don't know if I'd call Ken Ham a cult. Maybe we should have Dapper on to debate that.
No, so I've got a question from my chat, Chris.
I know of.
Yeah.
What's that?
So have you seen the Reckless... Rubik's for $5 asked, have you seen the Reckless Ben's Scientology investigation?
Reckless Ben was on my podcast, dude.
Hey!
Okay, that's probably a yes then.
So, yeah. I was there.
Reckless Ben also trolled Nathan Thompson, which was hilarious. He made him wear a duck suit telling him that it was a rubber suit to protect him from magnetic fields. That was one of the best things I've ever seen in my life.
No.
Also asked, what's your opinion on the South Park episodes around Scientology?
They are 100% accurate. They're very well done. They're very well done. Yeah.
I think the writers of South Park are very smart. They're usually on the ball with it.
Yeah, they are.
And they also asked for another $2. You mentioned about how you pay to have the sermons and the lessons and etc. So does the amount of money that you've sunk into it play into keeping people in Scientology?
Absolutely. It's called sunk cost fallacy, and it's one of the classic logical fallacies. Scientology is built on a number of logical fallacies. Appeal to authority. There's just boatloads of confirmation bias going on, of course, in any cult. In other words, you see what you want to see, not what's really in front of you. Stuff like that. And yeah, the whole appeal to emotion is a big one in there as well. And sunk cost fallacy definitely keeps people in.
I think there's one question that we've kind of danced around a little bit today, but haven't gotten an answer on and haven't addressed directly. And it's, is there another term or another word that we should be using instead of cult to describe flat Earth?
Decentralized ideological movement.
Yeah, I mean,
that sounds too long. Is there a short form? Can we get a?
If you want to be exact, if you want to actually be accurate, right?
No, I want to make fun of them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then they're just a bunch of stupid heads.
Yeah. What is it?
They're definitely a bunch of stupid heads.
I'm just getting the acronym.
They are that, but I mean, it's a particularly, it really before QAnon, flat Earth was the mother of all, the bottom barrel of all conspiracy theories. That's another way you can think of it, is it's a conspiracy theory, because it really is much more of a decentralized conspiracy movement than it is a cult, right? A destructive cult, because there's just the organization and framework just isn't there. The behavior is there sometimes in some cases, but it's not unified. It's not uniform. And because there's no centralized dogma, it's really hard to justify calling the whole thing one big cult. A cult literally has a unified dogma. It's just part of the package.
Yeah. So that's why I've kind of started to say that there's groups of cults within Flat Earth, because when you look at Nathan Oakley and his mantra, Nathan Oakley's got this mantra of the Earth is measured flat. And he will just say that over and over 1,000 times in his stream. And then that is spread. You can know if somebody is a follower of Nathan Oakley because they're telling you that the Earth is measured flat. It is a unified mantra. There is a cult within the Flat Earth movement. And it's the same when people are followers of Flat Earth Dave, or followers of Eric Dubay, or followers of Mark Sargent, because they've got these mantras. They've got these things that they will say over and over again that then... so maybe I can adjust my position and say that not Flat Earth as a whole is a cult, although I think all Flat Earthers have cult-like thinking, but I think within Flat Earth there are different cults. And I think
and that's why we talked about why we talked about cults of personality.
Yeah.
But I will say this, just to get everybody thinking a little bit about this, because I don't have this isn't like some big gotcha. It's more of food for thought. But think about this for a second. Think about how you falsify your statement, right? What else looks like that, what you just described? A group with disparate ideas around a central themed idea, and there's thought leaders with little followings. What is that? What does that describe?
Christianity.
Any fandom. It describes any fandom of any variety. Especially the anime fandoms, game fandoms, they all have shipping wars. You have people being like, is Tifa the best girl or is Aerith the best girl? And somebody walks in and is like, here's this other person from a whole different thing. Fuck you. And then people will go to war over it.
That's right.
Yeah, like if you ask someone who's the best
basically-
character in Star Trek, and if you don't say Riker, then you're clearly wrong. You know?
Exactly. Obviously. Obviously.
Obviously.
So that's what I'm talking about, right? Is it's food for thought. I'm not sitting here trying to lay a gotcha down. I'm saying if you're gonna call this group a cult, you've got to make it different from every other fandom or, frankly, any other human group, because science actually breaks down very similarly with thought leaders around a central theme of we're all doing neuroscience today, or we're all doing evolutionary biology today, and I'm a Dawkinite, and I'm not, right? Like you'll get that,
I think
right?
like
Yeah.
you can look at the world of science and the world of academia, and you can describe it very much like I did just describe Flat Earth. There's groups of cults. There is groups of mantra spouting people that, well, this specific PhD said this, so I'm going to repeat that, and anyone else that says anything else is wrong. Even though they might all agree that quantum mechanics is a thing, they've all got their different interpretations of quantum mechanics because this one person said this one particular thing.
This is what this is. Isn't that where that phrase comes from about standing on the shoulders of giants?
Yeah.
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 Stephen Hawkins would have stood on the shoulders of giants if he could stand.
If he could stand.
You stole that from history rap battles.
Epic rap battles history. Yes, I know. Look, I know the words to every single epic rap battles of history because I was obsessed with that for a long time.
I used to have a
they're
signed
coming
CD.
to Scotland in July, and I may buy some tickets to go and see epic rap battles of history in July. And my wife's like, I'll come with you.
Oh,
because
that's
we've already
amazing.
got a couple of concerts this year. End of June, we're going to see Skunk Anansie and the Alanis Morissette, which I can't fucking wait.
Oh.
Nice.
And then in August, we're going to see a bunch of like 90s pop bands like Blue and stuff. So, yeah.
I am going to.
But anyway, you see my point, right?
Yes.
About the group types, right? Because you've got to falsify yourself. You got to check yourself on these questions, right?
Check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Are you describing human groups or are you describing something abnormal and extreme?
Yeah.
And this is why I stress with cults, the dial is up to 11 across the boards. Everything that's good is super good. Everything that's bad is super bad, right? It's like everything is at its most extreme version of itself.
Yeah.
In a cult, right?
I think we're going to get into this a little bit more. I want to give us a quick break and then go back into the Q&A session. So the Q&A session is going to be live, but it will go away later. So if you want to watch it later, you got to be a member. So haha. Or just go to Craig's channel because he's not going to cut it. But I think what we're going to get into is that when it comes to how destructive Flat Earth is, because I think that a lot of people think the Flat Earth and Flat Earth followers are incredibly destructive when it comes to like doxing and following people around and screaming at kids, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that's and I think that is all destructive, and I think that's all of that is very bad. But I think that a lot of people might be underestimating how aggressive a cult like Scientology is, or Nexum is. So it's not that Flat Earth is not aggressive, and it's not that they're not problematic, and it's not that that their behavior isn't an issue. It's that the scales that we're talking about are like there's no relative comparison that people have access to right now. So we might have to go into that. But thank you so much for joining us. We will be right back after 2 minutes. However you guys are feeling, go get your drinks. We'll be right back.